So far, over 3 million Australians have opted to take their money out of superannuation under the government's early access scheme, but some don't believe this is enough. Master Builders Associate Chief Executive Denita Wawn, she's calling on the Treasurer to allow first home buyers to access up to $50,000 from their retirement savings so they can build or purchase a home of their own. Let's bring in my economics panel. Tonight, joining me in Melbourne is the Herald Sun's Terry McCrann, and in Sydney, the Australian's economics editor, Adam Crichton. I'll start with you, Terry. Denita Wawn, Master Builders, says in the papers today and on plenty of other news outlets, we know that people, she says, can get out of the rental cycle and into their own home if they can. It can provide a valuable financial foundation for their long-term future. Absolutely right. She's spot on. It's an asset. Do you think, though, accessing super at this time is the right call?
I'm in two minds about this, Peter. Whenever there's a problem, the housing industry always demands money be directed at them. First-time buyer grants, government subsidies of some sort. So I'm a bit reluctant to embrace the idea coming at this from the housing industry. On the other hand, and the more important hand, as you say, and it's access to your own money, and it's access to your own money in an important asset-building way, not just to go out there and spend it, but to actually build an asset. So I think I come down ultimately on the basis of letting any access to super is a good idea because it really should be voluntary. It is your money.
Adam, what do you think?
Look, I basically agree with Terry there. I think $50,000 is probably too much because it would just see a ratcheting up of house prices. Of course, it will be used as part of a deposit, which would then be leveraged up through borrowing from the banks. So it'd bring forward a lot of buying, bring forward a lot of consumption and building. And then, of course, you know, when the money runs out, house prices would still fall anyway. But that said, I'm certainly for the principle that it is people's money. I just rather go about disassembling superannuation by not proceeding with the increase to 12, or indeed making the whole 9.5% voluntary in the first place. I think that would be a sounder way to unravel it. I just think the deluge of cash. I mean, we know 42 billion by the end of year from the early release scheme, and that's only from $20,000. Imagine if it was $50,000 for everyone, effectively, or for first home buyers. It would be a mountain of cash. And I think it just could skew the housing market in a weird way.
Well, and it's a worry too, because a lot of the super funds, industry super funds, oppose people accessing their own money. And when you push them on it, there's obviously in the past, I think the last few months, certainly been concerns about whether they would have even have the liquidity to allow people to get their own money. So I think there's serious questions in terms of governance. And we know they've opposed having the same sort of corporate board governance rules for super funds as we see elsewhere. Adam, you've written today that one of the diplomats that's running, or potentially in the race certainly to be the next Director General of the World Trade Organisation, says it should be investigated if Australia is inappropriately using anti-dumping provisions to keep out foreign steel. Well, we've had barley, we've had beef, our wine's under a bit of a fight here now with China, and now we're talking about steel.
Yeah, look, certainly Australia has quite low tariffs in general, but I think a lot of people don't realise that we have this part of the Department of Industry in Canberra called the Anti-Dumping Commission, which occasionally slaps quite high tariffs on mainly steel from other Asian countries. And this has been frowned upon by the Productivity Commission many times. I mean, we're actually one of the worst users of these sort of tactics, these trade tactics in the world. And it just gives countries like China an excuse to threaten to stop our wine, to stop our barley. And you know, it's my view that we shouldn't be doing this so much because it just makes our case much weaker in the eyes of the global community.
We found out today too that pensioners won't be getting a boost to their payments. The Department of Social Services has revealed that September's planned payment rise won't proceed due to the quarter inflation drop in June. Terry, pensioners, they're going to have to wait until, at least March next year, I'm told, for an increase. Everybody else has had their increases. The public servants have all been looked after, but we've left our pensioners out in the cold.
Well, the way the system works, Peter, as you appreciate, is that they get the CPI increase, the bottom line CPI increase in these regular 6-monthly adjustments. And unusually, extraordinarily, we had a negative CPI because of the recession. I think it raises a much more fundamental problem with this adjustment process. that the CPI doesn't accurately reflect the costs that particularly pensioners, but old people generally, people in retirement face, where healthcare and costs like that are rising, but consumer goods are falling. Now, pensioners, I don't think, are big buyers of more and more flat-screen TVs or computers and so on, or all the great users of petrol and new cars. So it's always distorted in terms of what their real costs are rising. And I think it probably validates the government making some sort of adjustment, one sort of one-off payment to compensate for the fact that we had this negative CPI.
Well, of course, pay is not linked to CPI. Pensioners' pay is, pensioners' incomes are, but not pay in the broader term. We've got public servants that we saw in the NT, just days out from election, big increase for public servants up there, some could say, to buy the votes. In Victoria, if you add in all the sort of loadings of bonuses, it's more than 3% heading for the public servants down in Victoria. Adam, it's all the same purse of money, public servants or pensioners. It's a bit rough, isn't it?
Yeah, look, just putting the public servants to one side, and of course I've been very vocal about that they should not have a pay rise. Indeed, some of the higher paid ones should have a pay cut. But just on the pensioners issue, I think I disagree slightly with Terry. I don't think they should have indexation this time. I mean, after all, they've just had two $750 payments this year as part of the stimulus package, which is more than enough to compensate for a slight increase in indexation. And after all, inflation did go backwards, so they've had a real increase. I just think when the government's racking up debt at such an extraordinary pace, I don't think that you can increase what is the largest single payment of the federal government at about $50 billion a year by a certain percentage.
Yeah, but just on that point, Adam, there are plenty of other places in the federal budget, you and I both know, where you go looking for savings before you go after pensioners.
True. Yes, that's true. That's true. Look, I mean, the politics of it I fully understand, but the two $750 payments, I think, more than compensate this year at least.
Peter, Adam makes a very good point on that they have had these two big payments. Just on the public service point, aren't we all in this together, that we're all suffering the same pain from the lockdown and the recession, and particularly in Victoria?
Some are more equal than others in that, Terry, to coin an Orwellian phrase.
Exactly.
Yeah, all right, we'll leave it there. I loved looking at that fire. It's a bit breezy here in the office, so lovely to look at your fire there. Thank you very much, Terry McCrann, Adam Crichton.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Peter.